What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the market thus far, what you should be looking out for in the economic calendar, and how things are looking as we approach the option chain for tomorrow, because SPY has a lot of options expiring. But before I break anything down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Weeble and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 6 free stocks. If you deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks plus 6 months of level 2 data, and put in $25,000 or more, and you're guaranteed 70 free stocks plus 12 months of level 2 data. The offer ends in just 4 days. Check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. So looking at SPY right now, you guys can see that SPY has this flag that's potentially developing, and if we're going to see the liquidity being grabbed right here, this could be just like, a move potentially to prepare for some upside for tomorrow. But there's always the possibility of downside. So I'm going to break down what's more likely, in my opinion. Is the market just grabbing liquidity down here and just getting ready for a nice bounce for a breakout, or is the market going to sink more, in my opinion? So I'll be breaking that down over the next couple of minutes. Let's first talk about why tomorrow is so significant. So for tomorrow, it's going to be December 15th. As you can see, we have a little bit over 2 million calls expiring, and we have just under about 4.83 million puts expiring. We have a 2.37 puts to call ratio, over 4 million puts, and like just over 2 million calls. The majority of people have the puts, and the question is, will these puts not really matter that much since max pain is like, well below where we currently are? Or are we going to see the shorts get squeezed as they've been doing almost every single Friday for the last couple of weeks? So this all depends on what the market makers try to do. It depends on how the market holds up. And right now, it does look like the market could be set for a nice push thanks to all these puts. And I think there's a very, very good chance of that happening, but we have to watch and see what the reaction is after all the data comes out too. So for tomorrow, watch for some volatility at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have the S&P Global Composite PMI flash, the Global Manufacturing PMI, and all these other services PMI pieces of data. We want all of this to be aligned with the expectations, so we'll be watching to see what this causes. And finally, the Fear and Greed Index is getting closer to extreme greed. We're not quite there yet, at least overall, but we're seeing other indicators getting closer. So we'll be watching these very carefully. We'll see how this ends up going. I want to break down more details about the technicals now and then talk about how things are looking. SPY has this daily looking candlestick that sometimes could signal reversals, but there's no sign of us breaking down yet since we managed to close green. I also want to add that if you look at the MACD on the daily, it's still looking bullish, and the technicals still remain bullish, especially on the 4-hour time frame. We still are bullish. There's no sign of the market collapsing yet. In my morning video, I went over the two possibilities. I said SPY could just keep pushing up, or if we do end up kind of like cooling off first, that could be like the first thing that happens before we break up later. We ended up getting the bearish case where we kind of like cooled off a bit as they grabbed more liquidity before we got a nice bounce, and we managed to close, which I think is kind of significant, above the 5 minutes 200 EMA. We're still above that. So what do I think for SPY? It depends on 470. If we're bearish tomorrow, you want to see this thing lose 470 and fail to break above and just continue to downtrend and make its way down to 468 and eventually 467. That's the bearish case. The bullish case will be we basically hold 470 like we did today so far for the most part, bounce out of this, break out of this channel, and start pushing up for 472 plus, and eventually we'll make our way back up towards this wick at 474 and above that as well. What do I think is more probable? I favor the upside. I think there's a very good chance that we're going to sink when we open tomorrow. I think there's going to be a little drop like this. And then we'll see if we get this breakout or not. I do favor this a bit more. I think it's more likely to happen with all these puts expiring. And also because when we dropped, you guys can see this wick down here. When we dropped, I think they're just grabbing liquidity here before they're about to push it up higher. They already pushed it up a bit, at least for the last 1.5 hours of the day. Don't know if this will continue, but I do favor a little drop when we open, then a bounce, and I think that we might actually break out. But just to be safe, make sure you watch 470. If we fail to hold it tomorrow, I would turn bearish. If we manage to, bounce off of it and break out, I would turn bullish and get above 472. My guts tells me we're going to be making our way up to 474, and we're going to see a squeeze because of the fact that it's a Friday. Now, for the QQQ, what do I think is the bullish and bearish case, and what do I think is more likely? So, the bearish case on the triple Q is going to be that this thing basically retraces towards this 400 area, and we fail to hold 400. If we close below it, I would turn a lot more bearish. The bullish case would be we continue to uptrend because if you think about it, we technically held above this yellow trend line. You guys can see the yellow line. We're still holding this on the triple Q. Even today, we bounced off of it. So if we hold this, we might just continue to uptrend as time goes on. So what do I think is more likely? I think we're going to actually drop a little bit when we open. We're going to see this trend line being back tested around the very low 402s, and a nice bounce and a push up for 405, and we just slowly uptrend as we approach the end of the day, and we make our way back up towards this high up here. I think there's a very good chance that the QQQ is going to get bought up again. This drop right here could just be a liquidity grab before they try to push it up higher. And I still think there's a possibility of another squeeze for Friday as the market keeps on squeezing shorts, and we have over 4 million puts expiring. Now, to be bearish, you want to see it lose the yellow trend line, then basically make its way down to 400 and fail to hold that. And then we could start sinking back down towards like 398 and 396.5. If we're bullish, you want to see this thing basically continue to push, hold above the yellow trend line, and make our way up towards 404, break above that, and just continue to uptrend. Then eventually 406 and 408 after that. I favor the upside. I think that this green trend line is more probable. We might drop when we open and start pushing up, but just to be safe, let's just wait and see. On Nvidia, I've been saying Nvidia might see a bounce soon, and we actually got a nice bounce. As far as Nvidia goes, I mentioned the possibility, at least for tomorrow, that when we open tomorrow, I'm going to actually adjust this a little bit. So for Nvidia, let me actually redraw this. I think this is actually a little bit messed up. My lines kind of got off, guys. I'm sorry about that. But for Nvidia, okay, there's a bullish and there's a bearish case. The bears will argue there's like a head and shoulders here. And if you're really bearish for the market, you're going to be looking for Nvidia to basically come down like this when we open, which I think is very probable. It could even come all the way back down to this 475 area. And if we fail at 475, I think this is going to be a very key zone because of this liquidity over here. If 475 fails us, we're going to be coming back down here and then attempt to bounce. So that's like the more bearish case. The bullish case is going to be Nvidia basically comes down and establishes a higher low. So maybe we back to 477 to 480. Then we bounce after that. And we see this thing attempt to get back up to 485 or so and kind of chop around a bit and eventually push up higher than that. What do I favor on Nvidia? It's going to depend on the news and stuff, guys, but I think that there's a very good chance that they're trying to grab liquidity over here. They're grabbing liquidity close to 475, and they're going to start pushing this thing right back up. So I think there's a good chance of a little drop coming tomorrow morning and a bounce. I think that Nvidia is going to try to push up closer to the higher 480s. Now, I can't promise this as it depends on different factors, but I still find this very, very probable. Let me do Tesla first, then Apple. Tesla's looking very strong, got a very, very bullish break out of its falling wedge after they announced the Gen 2 Optimus bots, not to mention all the news about the cuts that from the Fed. If you're bearish on Tesla, what do you want to see? If you're bullish, what do you want to see? Here's my simple answer. It's very simple, guys. On Tesla, it might retrace towards 250 to backtest this yellow trend line. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose 247. If we lose that and we get below this blue trend line, expect it to come all the way back down to 242. If we hold around this 247 zone to 245, we hold and we bounce back up, then Tesla could be making its way back up towards 254 and then try to push even higher towards this orange trend line. Now, this is going to be our next resistance that's worth watching, and we could be pushing close to 260 if we get a bounce from there. Those are the bullish and bearish cases. I personally do favor this bullish case, but don't forget, guys, Tesla's a little tricky to predict sometimes because of some bad news. Sometimes there's bad news and you never know what's going to happen. But nonetheless, guys, I still favor a little drop and then a bounce for Tesla. For Apple, I just want to mention that Apple is looking kind of decent right now. Although Apple is starting to downtrend, I actually want to redraw this in a different manner because we have this new channel that's developing. We'll be watching to see if this is just another attempt to grab liquidity or if Apple's actually going to turn bearish. But I think that Apple has a little more downside coming. So one could technically just draw out like a little channel like this. Very, very simple. And I think we're going to come down like this when we open. And We'll see if this thing gets a break to the upside and tries to backtest this 199 to 200 level. If we get some kind of squeeze, the squeeze case would be a breakout like this. The bearish case is going to be Apple just continues to respect this. We end up failing where the wick is. We fail to break out 197. We just start sinking back down towards 195. That is the more bearish case. What do I favor? I have a feeling that this is like a trap and that they were grabbing liquidity here. We might get a breakout and we might see, because of all these puts expiring and attempts to go back up higher, Apple might try to push back up towards 199 and then just kind of consolidate. So I wouldn't rule out the possibility of that, and I'll be watching just to be safe. With that being said, I'm going to be very brief with the ending. As far as SoFi goes, we were talking about a breakout yesterday. Where is SoFi now? It's approaching $10 as we predicted. We were talking about this thing breaking out. I was talking about a test of the 200 EMA. Would you look at that? It's already there, and the weekly is looking bullish. It could even keep going towards $11. It looks bullish to me. For the IWM, we hit 200, got rejected a bit, came back up. It still looks bullish on the weekly. It's a little bit overbought, but I still think that there's potential for it to push. Now, on the daily time frame, it has a big gap down below, but there's no sign of it breaking down yet. We could grab more liquidity around 197.5, then bounce and start pushing back up to 200. That is still a possibility. Microsoft has come down quite a bit after some bearish news came out, but I think that it's dropped quite a bit. It's dropping a little bit too hard. We have to see if it could hold this support at 364. I think it might actually drop a little bit more towards 362.9, then bounce and kind of hold up in this range. So we'll be watching that just to be safe. For AMD, very flat right now. I was talking about 142 on AMD. Do you guys remember me saying that 142? If we reject off that, that's going to be our resistance. That is almost exactly where it went to, 141.8. I was looking at the chart historically when I determined that level. That is close to where we rejected. So if we're bearish, you want to see it get below 135. If we fail that, we're going to turn bearish. If we balance, we could see a backtest of 142. To turn bullish, you want to break 142. As of right now, we haven't done that. So I'll be watching this carefully. I think that this is still very indecisive. It's very flat right now. It might consolidate a bit. We might just range trade between 136 and 140 for the rest of tomorrow. And then we'll see what happens on Monday, if there's some kind of break or not. On the VIX, making attempts to bounce, but not really that convincing to me. We're still below the daily 20 EMA. If you want to be bullish on the VIX, you have to break that. As of right now, it's just very flat. Same thing with the SQQQ, it's up 0.4%. That's not really much. So I'm not officially bullish or bearish yet. I'm just going to wait and see. But what does favor the bulls for the stock market would be the dollar index, because the dollar is looking more and more bearish. The weekly looks bearish. It could come down to 100.5. The 4-hour looks bearish. The daily looks bearish. The dollar still looks bearish, which could help the market hold up. Coinbase, lo and behold, I talked about this thing potentially dropping, then bouncing. We technically dropped a little bit back down towards this 150 area before bouncing. Coinbase is not done yet. I mean, one thing that I've been mentioning is that I wouldn't necessarily like buy it at this level, or like buy like heavily for the long term, because this thing is going to pull back eventually. But I have a target, and I think there's still more upside coming at the 200 EMA on the weekly time frame. 168 on Coinbase, it could push a little bit more. On Alibaba, on Alibaba, as long as we hold above 70, I see 75 coming. I called out 75 on Alibaba. We're getting closer as the days go on. For Google, we talked about some downside coming. We mentioned that this thing could backtest our weekly 20 EMA. I told you, if you want to be bullish, you need to see it break a particular level. We just did not get confirmation of a break yet. We failed to break 134, so Google's looking a little bit weak. I could see this actually dropping down to 131 again, then bouncing and trading kind of flat. In my opinion, I think that it's very probable that we get some sideways price action. For Amazon, I would mention that this is very flat. So we're going to be looking for it to trade sideways as well. Not a whole lot going on. It might drop towards 144.5 to 145, then back up again, just going back and forth and back and forth. There's not really much going on with Amazon. I think it's just going to remain range bound. And for Meta, I was hoping this thing would try to bounce. We're not quite there yet, but I think that as long as it holds to 50 EMA, it's going to be in a decent place. We could see it try to push up towards this resistance right here around this 335 area. So I could see it try to make its way back up. I will turn bearish on it if we lose 329. I would turn bearish, and I think it's going to be sinking more to 323. But for now, watch it try to back to 335, and we might just trade sideways from there. All right, guys, so SPY is dropping in the after hours. We could kind of drop a bit tomorrow morning, but watch and see if there's some kind of bounce. I will turn a bit more bearish on SPY in the markets if SPY loses 470 and we fail to break above it. If Tesla ends up losing 247 and the list goes on, I could favor the bears. But right now, looking at the chart, I think there's a good chance that we might actually bounce. I don't think that that's going to happen. I actually favor the fact that we might hold above our level as the buyers will still defend. We might see a little drop when we open, followed by a bounce. And we might see another short squeeze because of all these puts expiring. So I still favor a little squeeze at the end of the week. However, we'll just have to wait and see and watch for confirmation just to be safe. All right, guys, that's it for this one. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day. Hopefully, this video was helpful. I'm trying to keep this one kind of brief, so please take care. Enjoy the evening, and I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow morning. Thank you, and peace out.